On a foggy morning, I called a taxi to the airport to see my son, off on his first overseas business trip. In my hurry, I stepped into the wrong car. The driver glanced at me through the mirror and said, "I still can't believe what you asked me to do near that bank." My heart froze. He thought I was someone else. And within minutes, a stranger revealed a secret about my son's actions that shattered everything I believed. Welcome to Revenge, Dad. Before this story starts, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. What country, what city. I read everyone. This story includes fictional elements added for entertainment and meaningful storytelling. Names and settings are not drawn from specific individuals, but the lesson inside it is something I believe you need. I have been waking up at 5 in the morning for the past 38 years, ever since I opened the shop. Some habits live deeper than memory. They settle into your bones and pull you out of bed before the alarm even thinks about going off. But that morning, the 6th of January 2024, I woke up 15 minutes early. I just lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, with something warm sitting in the middle of my chest. Pride, I think. The kind that makes it hard to breathe right. Ethan was going to Tokyo. I said those words to myself a few times while I was still in bed, just to hear how they sounded. My son, my boy, going overseas for the first time on company business. I thought about Margaret and wondered if she could see this from wherever she was. I hope she could. I got up slow. My right knee has been arguing with me since September, and shuffled into the kitchen in my socks. The floor was cold through the wool. I started the coffee the way I always do. 2 scoops the cheap stuff from the can, the way Margaret used to tease me about every single Sunday morning for 18 years. "Walter Bennett," she'd say, leaning against the counter with that look on her face. "You could afford the good beans and you know it." "This is the good stuff," I'd tell her. "Tastes like hard work." She'd shake her head and laugh. God, I miss that laugh. The kitchen clock above the stove, the one she picked out at a garage sale in Pasadena back in '89, a round white face with black numbers, nothing fancy, ticked steadily in the quiet. $6 she paid for it. 35 years later, it still kept perfect time. Some things just last. I poured my coffee and stood at the counter looking at the small package on the table. I'd wrapped it myself the night before, brown paper and twine, the way my own father used to wrap things. Inside was my old leather tool roll, the one I'd carried since 1986, soft brown leather gone almost black at the edges, 12 pockets each one, shaped by whatever tool had lived there longest. I'd cleaned every piece before rolling it back up. I wanted Ethan to have something that had been somewhere, something that meant a man had shown up day after day and done the work. I'd almost called him the week before to talk about the trip. I'd dialed 3 numbers and then hung up, feeling foolish. He was 34 years old. He didn't need his father calling to ask if he'd packed enough socks. But I was proud. Lord, I was proud. I finished my coffee, rinsed the mug, and went to get my coat. The taxi was supposed to arrive at 5:45. I wanted to get to LAX with enough time to find him before he went through security, hand him the package, maybe get a cup of bad airport coffee together before he had to go. Outside, the January air hit me like a damp cloth pressed against my face. East LA in winter doesn't get the cold that other places do, but the mornings carry a chill that settles in your joints and doesn't apologize. A thick mist had rolled in off the hills overnight, and it sat low over the street, blurring the glow of the streetlights into soft orange smears. I pulled my coat tighter and reached back to make sure the door was locked. When I turned around, I saw 2 black sedans parked along the curb, maybe 20 feet apart. Both dark, both the same general shape, both sitting quiet in the mist. One of them had its interior light on. I figured that was mine. I was adjusting the strap on my shoulder bag and watching my footing on the wet pavement and thinking about what I was going to say to Ethan when I saw him. Something about how his mother would have wanted to be there, something true but not so heavy that it ruined the morning. I pulled open the rear door of the closer car and dropped into the back seat. The car smelled like coffee and a pine air freshener hanging from the mirror. I settled in, set the package on my lap, and the driver pulled smoothly away from the curb without a word. We'd gone maybe half a block when he glanced into the rearview mirror and said, "Ethan heading to LAX early today, huh?" My hand tightened around the package in my lap. The driver was a broad-shouldered man, mid-40s, with a close-cut beard going gray at the jaw. His eyes in the mirror were relaxed, friendly, the look of someone making easy conversation on a quiet morning. I started to say something. Then I stopped. He thought I was Ethan. Something made me hold still. Not suspicion exactly, more like the way you freeze when you hear a sound in the house at night and you're not sure yet what it is. I kept my mouth shut and let the moment stretch. I still remember that run a few weeks back. The driver said, his eyes moving back to the road as we turned onto the avenue. When you asked me to take you past the old bank district over on the east side, you remember that? My throat tightened. I had no idea what he was talking about. Ethan had never mentioned anything about a bank district. That was a strange one. The driver continued, his voice easy and conversational, the voice of a man who thought he was talking to someone he knew. I didn't say anything at the time, but I thought about it after. My right hand, the one that shakes a little since the accident in 2019, the one I've learned to work around, pressed flat against the leather package in my lap to keep it still. "What do you mean strange?" I heard myself say. I kept my voice low and even close enough to neutral that he wouldn't notice anything different. The driver glanced in the mirror again. "Well," he said, "the questions you were asking, about that area, the routes, the timing, what streets had cameras on them." He paused. "I used to work security at Wells Fargo for 8 years over on Figueroa. When somebody starts asking that kind of thing, you remember it." The streetlights outside blurred past. The city moved around the car, and I sat completely still, my chest tight, my coffee from 20 minutes ago, sitting like a stone behind my ribs. "You asked me which intersections had traffic cameras," he went on, "and what times the patrol units usually came through that neighborhood, and then you made a phone call in the back seat." His voice shifted just slightly. "You said, and I'm not trying to get into your business here, but you said after this trip, everything gets settled." My heart knocked hard against my sternum. "And then last week," he said, "you asked me something that I thought was real odd. You wanted to know about the process, what happens when a property goes into foreclosure, when a bank puts an asset up for auction." He shook his head. "I told you I didn't know much about that, but you kept asking." I reached up slowly and pulled my hat off my head. The driver looked in the mirror. His eyes went wide. The friendliness drained out of his face in about half a second, replaced by something closer to alarm. "Sir," he said carefully, "you're not Ethan." My voice came out steadier than I felt. "No," I said. "I'm not. I'm Walter Bennett. I'm his father." I looked at his reflection in the mirror and felt the words land somewhere deep and cold inside me. "And I think you just told me everything my son never wanted me to know." The driver pulled the car over to the curb so fast that the tires scraped against the concrete. He twisted around in his seat and looked at me with eyes that had gone from startled to something close to stricken. His name, I would learn in the next 60 seconds, was Caleb Morrison. 45 years old, broad shoulders, hands that looked like they'd done real work somewhere along the line. And the expression on his face right then was the expression of a man who had just understood all at once exactly what he had done. "His father," Caleb repeated. His voice had dropped to almost nothing. "You're Ethan's father." "That's right," I said. My voice surprised me with how steady it came out. Inside, something had cracked clean through, but my voice didn't know that yet. "Walter Bennett. I live at the address your system picked up. I was trying to get to the airport to see my son off." Caleb pressed both hands flat against the steering wheel and stared through the windshield at the empty street ahead of us. A muscle in his jaw worked like he was chewing something he couldn't swallow. "Mr. Bennett," he said, "I am so sorry. I thought he's used this pickup location before, and in the dark with the hat, I just—" He stopped himself, dragged one hand down his face. "I should have confirmed. I always confirm. I don't know why I didn't confirm." "It's all right," I said, and I meant it, because it was the truest thing I could say. If he had confirmed, I would have gotten out of this car and climbed into the right one and gone to the airport and handed my son a package and felt nothing but proud for the rest of the day. "Tell me the rest," I said. "Everything you told me thinking I was him. I want to hear all of it." Caleb turned back to look at me. Something shifted behind his eyes, a kind of reckoning. I think the moment a person decides to stop managing a situation and just tell the truth. "I drove for Wells Fargo security for 8 years, he said. "Not driving, I was a guard, armed, branch security, mostly downtown locations." He reached into the center console and pulled out a small spiral notebook, the cheap kind you get at a drugstore, and held it up so I could see it. "Old habit. When something feels off on a ride, I write it down, date, time, what was said. Most of the time, it's nothing, but I've been doing it since 2016, and it's saved me twice in situations I didn't want to be in." He opened the notebook to a page near the middle, and I could see neat handwriting dates in the margin. Your son Ethan, he first used my car about 6 weeks ago, early morning like today. He asked me to take him to the area around Pacific Coast Bank on South Spring Street downtown. Caleb's finger moved down the page. That first time he just wanted to drive past, said he was scoping out a location for a client meeting. I didn't think anything of it. I pressed my back against the seat and made myself breathe. Second time was 4 days later, Caleb continued. Same area, but this time he started asking questions. Not aggressive, not weird, just casual like he was making conversation. He asked which intersections had traffic cameras. I told him I wasn't sure. He asked what time the police usually did their sweeps through that block. I told him I didn't track that. But here's the thing, Mr. Bennett. He tapped the notebook. I wrote it down, because a man who spent 8 years standing in front of a bank vault knows what those questions mean. They mean someone is casing something. My stomach dropped so fast, I had to grip the door handle to keep from feeling like I was falling. He came back 4 more times after that, Caleb said. His voice was steady but careful, the way people talk when they know the words are going to hurt and they're trying to deliver them without making it worse. Always that same neighborhood, always early before the streets got busy. One time he had me wait around the block while he walked the area on foot for almost 20 minutes. When he got back in the car, his shirt was damp, even though it was 50 degrees outside. And the phone call, I said. My mouth had gone dry. You mentioned a phone call. Caleb nodded. 3rd or 4th visit? He took a call on the way over. Didn't try to keep his voice down. I don't think he remembered I was there. He found the entry in his notebook and read directly from it. He said, and this is exact, "It's handled on my end. After this trip, everything gets settled. Just make sure your guy doesn't get jumpy." Then he laughed. Short laugh like something wasn't funny, but he wanted it to sound like it was. The mist outside had thickened against the windows. I could feel my right hand trembling against the door handle, not from the cold, and I pressed it harder into the grip to make it stop. You said he asked about foreclosures, I said. About what happens when a bank puts property up for auction. Caleb's expression shifted in a way I couldn't quite read. His chin dipped slightly like he didn't want to say the next part. Last ride, he said. Maybe 10 days ago. On the way back out of nowhere, he asked me if I knew how property auctions worked when a bank repossesses something. Not real estate in general, he was specific. He said something like, if a small business property goes into default, how fast does it move to auction? I told him I had no idea. He said it didn't matter, he was just curious. Caleb closed the notebook carefully. A man who's just curious doesn't ask that question at 6 in the morning after spending 20 minutes walking around a bank. I let go of the door handle. I put both of my hands on the package in my lap, the leather tool roll I'd wrapped the night before, all those clean tools nested inside it, and I pressed down until I could feel the shape of every single one through the brown paper. 38 years. I had spent 38 years building something with these hands so that my son would have something solid to stand on. And somewhere along the way, I didn't know exactly, didn't know how, didn't know why my son had started making plans to take it apart. Mr. Bennett. Caleb's voice was quiet and direct, the voice of a man who had delivered difficult news before and understood that softening it too much was its own kind of cruelty. I don't know exactly what your son is planning, but I know what those questions add up to. And I know that whatever it is, it involves that bank, and from what he was asking about property auctions, it might involve something a lot closer to home for you. My throat locked, my eyes burned hot, and I blinked hard against it because I was not going to fall apart in a stranger's car on a Tuesday morning in January. I had a shop to open, I had 3 guys counting on me to show up. I had a son who, God help me, I still did not fully understand. There's one more thing, Caleb said. He hesitated. And when a man like that hesitates, you know what's coming is the worst part. The last time I drove him, he wasn't going to the bank to look at it. He met my eyes in the rearview mirror and held them. He was parked half a block away for 40 minutes, Mr. Bennett, just sitting there, watching the front entrance, counting something. I could see his lips moving. The package in my lap felt like it weighed 100 pounds. I'll take you to the airport, Caleb said quietly. No charge, you need to get there. I nodded once because my voice had left me entirely, and outside the window, the city of Los Angeles moved past in the gray morning mist, looking like it always did, like nothing in the world had changed. LAX Terminal 6 looks the same at 6:30 in the morning as it does at noon, bright loud, indifferent. The overhead lights run white and hard along the ceiling, and they don't care what time it is or what you're carrying inside your chest when you walk through the doors. People move in every direction at once, rolling suitcases clattering across the tile, children half asleep on their parents' shoulders, airline employees in their pressed uniforms cutting through the crowd like they own the floor. Nobody looks at anybody else. That's the thing about airports. Everyone is too caught up in their own destination to notice yours. Caleb had pulled up to the departures curb without another word between us after what he'd said. When I climbed out, he leaned across the passenger seat and called through the open door. "Mr. Bennett." His voice was rough at the edges. "I'm sorry. Whatever's happening, I'm sorry I'm the one who had to tell you." I looked back at him. The man's face was tight with something that wasn't quite guilt, but lived in the same neighborhood. I wanted to tell him he had nothing to be sorry for. I wanted to tell him that the telling was the kindest thing anyone had done for me in a long time. But my throat was still locked up tight, and the best I could manage was a single nod before I turned and walked through the sliding glass doors. The terminal swallowed me whole. I moved through the check-in area with the package tucked under my arm, scanning faces, reading the departure boards out of habit. Tokyo, Japan Airlines. Gate 62B, boarding in 40 minutes. I found a pillar near the far wall just back from the main flow of foot traffic, and I stopped there and I waited. I told myself I was just getting my bearings. That was a lie, and I knew it even as I thought it. What I was actually doing was something I had never done in 67 years of living. I was preparing myself for the possibility that, when I saw my son's face, I would not recognize what I found there. I spotted him 7 minutes later. Ethan was standing near the end of the check-in counter away from the main line. He was wearing the charcoal blazer I'd seen him in a dozen times, the one he said made him look like he meant business, and he had a single carry-on bag at his feet, small, soft-sided, the kind you'd pack for a weekend, not 10 days in Tokyo. His hair was combed, his shoes were clean. From 50 feet away, he looked exactly like what he'd told me he was. A young professional on his way somewhere important. But his hands were wrong. I have spent 38 years reading machines. You learn after enough time that the noise a thing makes on the surface is not always what's happening inside it. A motor can sound smooth and be 3 days from seizing. You listen for the thing underneath the thing. And what I saw in Ethan's hands, the way his right thumb kept pressing against the pad of his index finger, over and over, a small grinding motion. The way his fingers tightened on his phone every time it didn't buzz. That was the sound of a machine running too hot. He checked his phone 4 times in the 2 minutes I watched him. Not the casual check of a man waiting for a boarding announcement. A tight, urgent check phone face up and tilted away from the crowd. The kind of check that means you're waiting on something that matters more than your flight. He made a call, short. He turned his back to the terminal and cupped his hand around the bottom of the phone, and even from where I stood, I could see the stiffness across his shoulders, the way his free hand pressed flat against his thigh like he was trying to keep it still. When he hung up, he rolled his neck slowly once, and then scanned the terminal in a slow arc left center, right the way you look around when you want to make sure no one is watching you. My chest ached so badly in that moment that I pressed my fist against my sternum and held it there. He looked right through me. I was standing in plain sight 40 feet away, and my son looked directly at me and his eyes kept moving, because he wasn't looking for his father. He was looking for something else entirely, and whatever it was, it made his jaw tight and his eyes hard in a way I had never seen on him before. Or maybe I had seen it and just hadn't let myself name it. A father's love, I think, is the most elaborate blind spot in the human condition. We see exactly what we need to see, and we file away the rest somewhere deep and quiet, and we call it trust. I had trusted Ethan with everything, with the knowledge that the shop would someday be his. With the joint account that had Margaret's name on it once before, I'd had it changed. With the absolute certainty, bone deep and unquestioned, that the boy I had raised alone after his mother died would never look me in the eye and choose to deceive me. The boarding announcement came over the PA system first in English and then in Japanese, and Ethan picked up his bag and joined the line moving toward the security checkpoint. He didn't look back. He moved with the crowd unhurried, and when he reached the agent and handed over his boarding pass, I watched the agent scan it without a second glance, and then Ethan Bennett, my son, my only child. The reason I had gotten up every morning for 34 years, walked through the checkpoint, and disappeared into the space on the other side. I stood at that pillar until the line thinned out and the terminal settled back into its ordinary noise. The package was still under my arm, the leather tool roll I had cleaned and wrapped and carried out of my house before dawn, with the intention of pressing it into my son's hands and telling him his mother would have been proud. I looked down at it. Then I tucked it into my shoulder bag and zipped the bag shut. My legs carried me back toward the exit on their own, because my mind was somewhere it had never been before. Standing in the wreckage of something, it didn't yet have words for turning over what it had just seen, matching it against what Caleb had said, and feeling the two things click together with the sick precision of a key turning in a lock you didn't know existed. Outside, the January air hit me again, cold and damp and real. I found a bench near the taxi stand and sat down heavily, both hands braced on my knees, and I stared at the pavement between my shoes for a long moment while the world moved around me. A skycap wheeled a cart of luggage past. A family with 4 kids piled out of a minivan 30 feet away, all of them talking at once. Somewhere behind me, a horn blew twice sharp and impatient. I pulled out my phone. My hands were shaking badly enough now that I had to use both thumbs to find the contact. Frank DeLuca, 63 years old. Retired PI, lived on a quiet street in Burbank with a bad knee and a good memory, and 35 years of knowing when to ask questions and when to just listen. The closest thing to a brother I had ever had. The phone rang twice. "Walter." Frank's voice was flat and awake, the voice of a man who had never needed much sleep. "It's not even 7. What happened?" I opened my mouth, closed it, pressed the back of my wrist against my eyes hard enough to make the pressure hurt, because if I let the burning get any further, I was going to lose the thread entirely, and I could not afford that right now. "Frank," I said, and my voice came out low and cracked at the center like old wood giving way under too much weight. "I need you to do something for me, and I need you to not ask why yet." A beat of silence on the line. Then Frank said simply, "Tell me what you need." And for the first time since I had climbed into the wrong car that morning, I felt something that wasn't fear. It wasn't relief exactly. It was just the knowledge that I was not standing in this alone. The house felt different when I walked back into it. I don't know how else to explain it. Nothing had moved. The kitchen table was where it always was, the chair I'd pushed back when I got up at 5 still sitting at an angle. The coffee pot had finished its cycle and clicked off, and the half-inch of dark liquid left in the bottom was starting to thicken the way coffee does when it sits too long on a warm burner. The clock on the wall read 9:14. Everything was exactly where I had left it 4 hours ago. But the rooms felt smaller somehow, like the walls had shifted inward just enough that you couldn't measure it, but you could feel it in your breathing. I hung my coat on the hook by the door and stood in the kitchen for a moment with my hands at my sides, just listening to the quiet. Then I went to the counter, poured the old coffee down the drain, and started a fresh pot. Some part of me thought that if I kept doing the ordinary things in the ordinary order, the morning would find its way back to something manageable. It didn't work. It never does. I sat down at the kitchen table with my laptop, which I mostly used for ordering parts for the shop and watching baseball when the TV in the living room gave me trouble. The last time I had logged into our joint bank account, mine and Ethan's, the one I had added him to 6 years ago, because he'd asked, and I saw no reason not to, was sometime in October, maybe September. Ethan handled the transfers, the automatic payments, the things I had never had the patience for. He was good with numbers. I had always been grateful for that. The page loaded slowly. My reading glasses were on the table, and I put them on and leaned in. The balance hit me like a fist to the sternum. I actually pushed back from the table. My chair scraped loud across the floor, and I sat there with both hands gripping the edge of the table, staring at the number on the screen, and for a full 30 seconds I was convinced I was reading it wrong. I took my glasses off, cleaned the lenses on my shirt, put them back on. The number hadn't changed. $11,240. In an account that had carried between $30,000 and $40,000 for the better part of a decade. An account I had never touched for anything frivolous, the account that held the money set aside for the roof repair I'd been putting off since the leak started in the back bedroom last spring, $15,000. Earmarked, saved slowly and deliberately, the way I saved everything. I clicked into the transaction history. My stomach turned over so hard I had to press my hand flat against it. 3 withdrawals. The first one on September the 8th, $4,000. Memo line, car repair, emergency. I remembered that. Ethan had called me on a Tuesday afternoon, voice tight with stress. Said the transmission had gone out on the freeway, said the tow and the repair were going to wipe him out. Said he'd pay it back by the end of the month. I'd told him not to worry about it. The second withdrawal on October the 19th, $6,000. Memo line investment opportunity discussed. I did not remember discussing any investment, but Ethan had mentioned something around that time about a business contact, a chance to get in early on something. And I had said it sounded interesting, and I suppose that had been enough for him to consider it discussed. The third withdrawal on November the 30th, $5,000. Memo line personal loan, short term. No explanation, no call, just gone. $15,000. My roof money. The money I had been setting aside since April, $50 a week, sometimes $100 when a good contract came through the shop. The careful, patient accumulation of a man who had learned early that the only thing standing between you and disaster was what you had managed to put away. I pushed my glasses up and rubbed my eyes with the heels of both hands until I saw color behind my eyelids. Then I picked up the phone and called the bank. The hold music was a soft jazz instrumental that under any other circumstances I would have ignored entirely. That morning, it felt like someone was playing it specifically to irritate me. After 4 minutes, a woman came on the line, professional and pleasant, asked how she could help. I need to verify some transactions on my joint checking account, I said. 3 withdrawals, September, October, November. She pulled up the account. I could hear her keyboard clicking. Yes, I'm showing those transactions, Mr. Bennett. All 3 were authorized. Authorized how? The second account holder on the file submitted the requests through our online banking portal. All 3 used the correct credentials and passed our 2-factor authentication. A pause. Is there a concern about unauthorized access? I looked at the ceiling. There was a water stain in the far corner that had been there since before Margaret died. I had painted over it twice, and it kept bleeding through. No, I said, because I didn't know yet what to call it. One more thing. Are there any credit accounts linked to this profile? Cards or lines of credit I might not be aware of? Another round of clicking. I'm showing your primary debit card, and yes, there's a secondary Visa card added to the account 14 months ago. Cardholder name listed as Walter R. Bennett. My name, my middle initial, my account. A card I had never applied for, never activated, never held in my hands. Can you tell me the last activity on that card? My voice came out remarkably even. I was proud of it in a distant, disconnected way, the way you notice something interesting about a stranger. Most recent charge was posted 3 days ago. More clicking. The Venetian Hotel and Casino, Las Vegas, Nevada. Room charge, $462. The room tilted. Not literally, but something behind my eyes shifted in a way that made the kitchen feel sideways, the table in front of me, suddenly at the wrong angle to the floor. I gripped the edge of it again and breathed through my nose, slow and deliberate, the way I used to breathe through the hard parts of a difficult repair when walking away wasn't an option. What's the check-in date on that charge? I asked. Check-in was January 4th, 2 nights. She paused. Mr. Bennett, is everything all right? I can connect you with our fraud department if... That's all right, I said. Thank you for your help. I ended the call and set the phone face down on the table. January 4th. 2 nights, which meant Ethan had been in Las Vegas since before he told me he was leaving for Tokyo. He had sat across from me at this table, this same table, the one with the scratch on the left corner, from the time he'd dragged a toolbox across it when he was 19, and he had told me about the Tokyo trip with a straight face and bright eyes, and I had believed every word because why wouldn't I? He was my son. The coffee maker beeped 3 times to say the fresh pot was ready. I didn't move. My right hand was shaking against the table, hard enough now that I could hear my knuckles tapping lightly against the wood, and I pressed my palm flat to make it stop, and held it there with my other hand on top of it, like I was trying to keep something from escaping. $47,000 gone from our joint account over 2 years. If I went back and added up all the small requests, all the emergencies, all the investments that never materialized into anything I could point to. I had not added it up before, because the thought had never occurred to me that adding it up was something I needed to do. He was my son. You don't keep a ledger on your son. There had been a voicemail on my phone when I got home that morning, a number I didn't recognize, a woman's voice, professional, and clipped saying she was calling from Meridian Credit regarding an outstanding account associated with my name and asking me to return the call at my earliest convenience. I had listened to it twice and written the name down on the legal pad without knowing what it meant. I knew what it meant now. The phone buzzed on the table. I flipped it over. Frank, a text message, 4 words. Found something. Call me. Then 30 seconds later, a second message. Sit down first. I looked at the chair I was already sitting in. I thought about telling Frank I was ahead of him on that particular instruction. Instead, I pressed the call button and put the phone to my ear. And when Frank picked up on the first ring, I said, "Talk to me." "Pacific West Freight," Frank said, without preamble, without hello. "Ethan's employer. I called a guy I know in their HR department. Retired cop owes me a favor from a workers' comp case in 2019. A pause that had weight to it. Walter Ethan hasn't worked there for 8 months. They let him go last May. Misconduct, they wouldn't give me the details, but the word my guy used was deliberate. Not a layoff, not a downsizing. They walked him out. I closed my eyes. 8 months. Every morning for 8 months my son had gotten up in this house, the house I had kept for him, kept it warm, and the refrigerator full, and the porch light on, and put on a clean shirt and driven away, and come back in the evening with stories about meetings and projects and a promotion that might be coming. 8 months of mornings, and I had cooked eggs and asked how things were going, and believed every answer. "Walter?" Frank's voice came through the phone carefully, like he was feeling for solid ground with each word. "You still there?" "I'm here," I said. My voice had gone rough at the edges, scraped down to something that didn't sound much like me. "Frank, this Meridian Credit that called this morning, and the name Ryan. You said you'd seen it before." "Yeah." The word came out flat and deliberate. "Give me one more day on that. And Walter, don't call Ethan. Not yet. Don't let him know you know anything." "I won't," I said. I set the phone down and sat in the quiet kitchen with my hands pressed flat on the table and the fresh coffee going cold on the counter and the clock on the wall ticking the same steady tick. It had ticked for 35 years, and I understood, in the way you understand something, that changes the shape of everything that came before it, that the man I thought I knew, the man I had built a life around knowing, had been a careful and deliberate fiction. And I had been the most willing audience he could have asked for. The coffee shop on Victory Boulevard had 6 tables and a handwritten menu board and smelled like burnt milk and cinnamon, and Frank DeLuca was already in the corner booth when I walked in at 2 o'clock. 2 mugs in front of him, both black, no sugar, the way we'd been drinking coffee together since 1989. He looked up when I came through the door, took one look at my face and said, "That bad?" It wasn't a question. I sat down across from him and wrapped both hands around the mug and felt the heat move up through my palms. Frank was 63 heavy-set, with a gray mustache he'd been threatening to shave off for 15 years, and dark eyes that had spent 25 years reading people for a living. He wasn't reading me now. He already knew. "Tell me everything," he said. "Start at the car." So I did. I told him about Caleb, about the notebook, about the questions Ethan had been asking around that bank. I told him about the bank account, the missing $15,000 the credit card opened in my name that had been running up charges in Las Vegas for 3 days. I told him about Pacific West Freight, about Ethan walking out of that parking lot 8 months ago with a cardboard box and a story he had never told me. By the time I finished, both our coffees had gone cold, and Frank had filled half a page of his own notepad with tight, neat handwriting. He tore the cap off his pen with his teeth and set it down. "All right," he said, "here's what I can do. I've still got people inside HR at half the freight companies in this city from the Ortega case back in 21. I'll make some calls, get the full picture on why they walked Ethan out." He tapped the notepad. "This Meridian Credit, that's a private lending outfit. Hard money, high interest, the kind of place you go when the banks have already said no twice." My stomach clenched. "How much trouble does a place like that mean?" Frank met my eyes across the table and didn't flinch. "The kind that comes with people who don't send collection letters, Walter. They send people." The words landed in my chest like a stone dropped in still water. I pressed my fist against my mouth and breathed through my nose and looked at the wall above Frank's shoulder until the worst of it passed. "And the name Ryan?" I asked. "You mentioned it this morning on the phone." Frank's jaw tightened slightly. "Ryan Cole. I've seen that name in connection with a real estate outfit out of Nevada Pacific Rim Holdings. Shell company, best I can tell. There are some fraud allegations from 2019 that never went anywhere." He leaned forward. "Walter, if Ethan is connected to this man, this is not a debt problem. This is something else entirely." I put both hands flat on the table. They were steadier than I expected. "Find out everything," I said. "Whatever it costs." Frank shook his head once sharp. "Don't insult me." He picked up his pen and flipped to a new page. "One more thing. You're going to need a lawyer. Not a general practice guy, someone who knows Elder Asset Protection California specifically." He was already writing a name and number on the corner of the page. He tore it off and slid it across to me. Diana Reyes, Pasadena. I worked a case with her in 2017. She's the best I've ever seen at untangling this kind of financial damage. He paused. Call her tomorrow morning, first thing. I looked at the name on the slip of paper. Then I folded it and put it in my shirt pocket right against my chest. Eddie Franken, I said. My voice cracked down the middle on just the one word, just his name, and I had to stop and reset before I could get the rest out. I don't know when it started. I don't know how long he's been living like this, getting up every morning, putting on a clean shirt, coming home in the evening, with stories about meetings and projects and a promotion that was always just around the corner. I stopped, pressed my thumbnail hard into the edge of the table until the pain was something I could focus on. 8 months, Frank, 8 months of mornings. I cooked eggs. I asked how things were going. I believed every answer. Frank didn't offer me anything soft or reassuring. He was too good a friend for that. He just looked at me steadily across the table and let me finish. There's a voicemail on my phone, I said, from a number I don't recognize. Woman from Meridian Credit asking me to call back about an account in my name. I set my phone on the table between us. I haven't called back yet. I don't know what I'm going to find when I do. Frank looked at the phone. Then he looked at me. Don't call them back yet, he said. Not until I know more about what we're dealing with. If there's an account in your name, you didn't open calling them. Puts you on record before you understand your position. He closed the notepad. Give me until tomorrow morning. I'll have something for you. I nodded. My throat was too tight for much else. Outside the window, Victory Boulevard moved past in the pale January afternoon cars and foot traffic and the ordinary machinery of a city that had no idea what was happening in this corner booth. I watched it for a moment and thought about how strange it was, the way the world keeps running its regular course while something inside it is coming completely apart. Frank, I said. He used to fall asleep in the truck on the way home from the shop when he was little. Dead weight. I'd carry him inside and he'd never even wake up. I thought I knew who that boy grew into. I stopped. I'm not sure I did. He just looked at me steadily across the table and said, I know. And somehow that was enough. Diana Reyes had an office on the second floor of a sand-colored building at the corner of Colorado Boulevard and Lake Avenue in Pasadena, up a flight of stairs that smelled like wood polish and old carpet. Her name was on the door in plain black letters. No logo, no tagline, nothing decorative. Just the name, and underneath it, in smaller type, Elder Law and Asset Protection. I had called her at 7:50 that morning. She had picked up herself no receptionist, and when I told her Frank DeLuca had given me her number, she said, come in at 9, and hung up before I could thank her. She was maybe 50 compact and sharp-featured with reading glasses pushed up into dark hair going silver at the temples. She shook my hand once firm and pointed me to the chair across from her desk without preamble. Frank gave me the short version, she said, pulling up something on her computer. Give me the long one. So I did. I talked for 20 minutes without stopping, and Diana Reyes listened without interrupting, without writing anything down, without changing her expression. When I finished, she turned to her keyboard and typed for 90 seconds with the focused efficiency of someone who already knew exactly what she was looking for. Then she stopped. She took her reading glasses down from her hair and put them on and leaned toward her screen, and something shifted in her face. Not alarm exactly, but the particular stillness of a person who has just confirmed something they were hoping not to find. Mr. Bennett, she said, I'm looking at the Los Angeles County real property records right now. Bennett and Sons Repair, registered to Walter R. Bennett Boyle Heights. She paused. There is a lien on this property. A deed of trust filed October 9th, 2023, securing a loan of $180,000 from Meridian Credit LLC. The chair I was sitting in suddenly felt like it was made of something that couldn't hold weight. That loan was authorized by a power of attorney document. Diana continued, her voice steady and deliberate, giving me each word at a measured pace, like she understood that some information needs space around it to land properly. The POA was signed on October 4th, 2023, granting full financial authority over your assets to Ethan James Bennett. She looked up from the screen and looked directly at me. Mr. Bennett, do you remember signing a power of attorney on that date? My mouth had gone completely dry. I pressed my tongue against the roof of it and tried to pull up the memory of October 4th, like I was reaching for a tool in the dark. I was at Cedars-Sinai that day, I said slowly. Annual heart checkup. They gave me something for discomfort during the procedure. I wasn't fully myself on the drive home. I stopped. My hands gripped the armrests of the chair hard enough that my knuckles ached. Ethan drove me. He said we needed to stop and sign some insurance paperwork. I signed what he put in front of me. I couldn't read it properly. The medication made everything blur. Diana held my gaze for a moment. Then she said, under California Probate Code, Section 4121, a power of attorney is legally void if the person signing it lacked the mental capacity to understand what they were signing at the time of execution. Prescribed medication that impairs judgment qualifies. She turned back to her screen. I'm going to need your medical records from Cedars-Sinai for that date. Can you authorize their release today? Yes, I said. Whatever you need. She was already typing again. Then she stopped once more and opened a second window, and whatever she saw there made her jaw tighten by a fraction. There's something else, she said. A limited liability company registered in Nevada Pacific Rim. Holdings contacted the lender 6 weeks ago, requesting information about the auction timeline for this property in the event of default. She turned her monitor slightly so I could see the screen. They're already positioned to buy your shop, Mr. Bennett. The moment that loan goes into default, they move. The room contracted around me. 38 years. Every early morning, every difficult contract, every machine I'd coaxed back to life with these hands, all of it sitting on a 60-day clock I hadn't known was running. How do we stop it? I asked. My voice came out harder than I intended. Good. Diana Reyes looked at me over the top of her glasses with the expression of a woman who had fought this fight before and won it. We file an emergency motion to freeze the auction proceedings, she said, and then we take this to court. She folded her hands on the desk. Mr. Bennett, someone used your name, your property, and your trust to set this in motion. California law has a very specific name for what was done to you, and it carries serious consequences. She held my gaze. But I need you to be ready for what comes next, because when I file this motion, your son will know that you know. I looked at her steadily across the desk. File it, I said. I found the medical records from Cedars-Sinai in the second drawer of the filing cabinet in the spare bedroom, the room that had been Ethan's until he was 22 and moved out, and that I had never quite managed to turn into anything else. The records were where they were supposed to be filed under H for heart, the way Margaret had organized everything in this house before she got sick, and I had kept doing it the same way ever since, because changing her system felt like erasing something I wasn't ready to erase. I pulled the folder and set it on the desk. October 4th was there, clear as anything. Procedure notes, medication, administered discharge instructions. Hydrocodone 5 milligrams, taken at 11:15 in the morning. Discharge at 1:40 p.m., with instructions not to drive, not to sign legal documents, not to operate machinery. Standard language. The kind of language a doctor writes because the law requires it, and most patients ignore it. Ethan had read those instructions. He had been standing right there when the nurse went through them, and then he had driven me to a notary's office on the way home and told me it was just insurance paperwork and held the pen out, and I had signed. My hand found the edge of the desk and gripped it. I stood there for a long moment breathing, looking at the discharge paper without really seeing it anymore. Then I started going through the rest of the drawer, pulling folders looking for anything else Diana might need. That was when I found the box. It was pushed to the back of the bottom drawer behind a folder of old tax returns, a small wooden jewelry box with a brass clasp that I recognized immediately and had not opened in 22 years. Margaret's. She had kept it on her dresser their entire marriage, and when she died, I had put it in this drawer because I couldn't look at it on the dresser anymore, and I couldn't throw it away, and the drawer seemed like the only honest answer. My chest tightened so hard it took my breath. I sat down on the edge of the old desk chair and held the box in both hands. The wood was smooth and cool. There was a small yellow envelope tucked under the clasp, sealed with my name written on the front in Margaret's handwriting. That looping careful cursive she had had since grade school. She had never given it to me. I opened the envelope with my thumbnail slow and careful, like the paper itself was something that could break. Inside was a single sheet of her pale blue stationery folded twice. My eyes burned before I even started reading. Walter, she had written. If you're reading this, then I ran out of time to say it out loud, and I'm sorry for that. There are things I want you to know about Ethan. Not because he's a bad boy, he isn't, and I need you to hold on to that even when it's hard. But he has always known exactly how to reach you. He knows that your love for him has no floor, no ceiling, no condition attached to it. And I'm afraid that one day, someone, maybe even him, will use that against you. I pressed the back of my wrist against my eyes. My breath came out jagged and broken, and I let it because there was no one in the house to hold it together for. Don't let the love make you blind, Walter. You are the smartest man I have ever known when it comes to machines and work and keeping your word. Trust yourself the same way with people, even the ones you made. I sat in that room until 3 in the morning with the letter in my lap and the records folder on the desk beside me and the quiet of the house pressing in from every direction. Then I stood up, folded the letter carefully, and put it in my shirt pocket next to the slip of paper with Diana's name on it. I picked up the phone and left a message for Diana's office about the medical records. Then I went to the kitchen, made a fresh pot of coffee, and sat down at the table in the dark to wait for morning. Before I tell you what Frank discovered about Ryan Cole and what Ethan was actually planning to do with my shop, comment the word shop below so I know you're still with me, because what I'm about to share is the part that took the ground out from under me completely. A quick note, this story contains fictional elements woven in for depth and reflection. Some details may not mirror any one person's experience, and if this kind of storytelling is not for you, it's completely okay to step away now and find something that fits you better. Frank called at 8:17 in the morning. I was on my second cup of coffee and hadn't slept, and the kitchen light felt too bright for what I was about to hear. Ryan Cole. Frank said, skipping hello entirely. 31 years old. No fixed employment on record for the past 4 years. Lists himself as a real estate investor on his taxes, which is the kind of thing people write down when they don't want to write down what they actually do. A pause. He had a federal fraud case out of Nevada in 2019, structured a series of property transactions through shell companies to move money that wasn't his. The case fell apart because the key witness recanted, but the paper trail never went away. My guy at the Nevada Secretary of State's office pulled it for me this morning. I was standing at the kitchen counter with the phone pressed hard against my ear and my free hand flat on the cold tile, grounding myself. Pacific Rim Holdings, I said. That's his, Frank said. Registered in Nevada 14 months ago. No real assets, no employees, no physical address, just a registered agent and a bank account. The kind of company you build specifically to catch something when it falls. Another pause heavier than the last. Walter, I need to tell you something, and I need you to hear all of it before you say anything. Go ahead. Frank took a breath. The $180,000 that came out of the mortgage on your shop, it didn't go to pay down Ethan's debts. I had someone trace the wire transfer. The money moved from Meridian Credit into an account linked to Ethan. And then within 48 hours, it moved again straight into a Pacific Rim Holdings operating account. He stopped. That was Ethan's buy-in, Walter. That was his contribution to the plan. He mortgaged your shop and handed the money directly to Ryan Cole. The coffee cup in my hand was shaking. I set it down on the counter before it could spill and pressed both fists against the edge of the tile and leaned into it with everything I had. He wasn't trying to pay his debts, I said. The words came out slow like I was translating something from a language I didn't want to speak. He was buying in. Yeah, that's right, Frank said. Here's how it works. Ryan Cole runs the operation, he organizes the approach on the bank, handles the logistics, takes the majority of the risk and the majority of the return. Ethan's role was information and alibi. He knew the area, he'd done the reconnaissance, and by being out of state when it happened, he could put distance between himself and the event. Frank's voice dropped half a register. But the real money for Ethan wasn't from the bank, it was from you. My throat closed. Pacific Rim Holdings is positioned to buy your shop at auction the moment that loan defaults, Frank said. 30 cents on the dollar, maybe less, because a distressed auction doesn't attract competitive bids when the right people know it's coming. Ryan Cole gets the property, Ethan gets a percentage. My best estimate based on what I can see of the arrangement is somewhere around 30% of the sale price. He paused. That's over $100,000, Walter, from your shop. The shop he knew you'd never willingly sell. I turned around and put my back against the counter and looked at the kitchen. The table where we'd eaten breakfast together 10,000 times. The clock Margaret had found at a garage sale. The crack in the baseboard I'd been meaning to fix since November. 38 years, packed up and sold off for $100,000 and the chance to walk away clean. He used me to get to it, I said. Not a question. Every step, Frank said quietly. The POA, the loan, the alibi trip. It was all designed so that when the dust settled, you'd get a foreclosure notice in the mail and think it was a banking error, and by the time you figured out what happened, the property would already be gone. A long pause. Walter, your son, didn't stumble into this. He drew up a chair and sat down at the table. The burning came back behind my eyes fast and fierce, and I pressed the heel of my hand against my left eye socket and held it there until the pressure pushed the feeling back down. Frank, I said, the vet next door to the shop, Martinez. Has he still got that security camera on his back fence pointing at the alley? Frank was quiet for a second. Then, with something that sounded almost like respect, I'll find out. And find out when Ethan's flight lands, I said. I want to know exactly how many days I have. Already on it, Frank said. Walter, I'm sorry. I'm real sorry. I know, I said. Keep going. I hung up and stood in my kitchen with both hands braced on the counter and my head down, and breathed through it the way you breathe through the moment when you realize a machine is more damaged than you thought. Not with panic, but with the slow, deliberate intake of someone taking inventory, figuring out exactly what they have left to work with, and what it's going to take to put things right. The photos came through at 11:43. 3 of them sent back to back, with no caption, no explanation, the way Frank always communicated when he thought the thing itself said everything that needed saying. I was sitting at the kitchen table, with a legal pad in front of me, writing down everything I could remember about the past 8 months, dates, amounts, conversations, the kind of methodical inventory I did when a job came into the shop with no paperwork, and I had to figure out from scratch what had been done to it and what it was going to need. I picked up the phone. The first photo was a still frame pulled from what looked like hotel corridor security footage. Grainy time stamped January 5th at 9:22 p.m. Ethan in the hallway of what was clearly a large hotel in a polo shirt and dark pants, no blazer, no carry-on, relaxed in a way I had not seen him look at LAX 2 days earlier. He was laughing at something on his phone, head tilted down, shoulders loose. I stared at that photo for a long time. My son had been in that hallway while I was sitting in this kitchen, convincing myself that the accounts could be explained, that there was a version of this that made sense, that I had not spent 67 years building a life, only to have it sold out from under me by the person I trusted most. He looked so easy. That was what hit me hardest. Not the location, not the lie about Tokyo, the ease of him. The absolute absence of anything that looked like guilt or fear, or even the low-grade tension of a man carrying a secret. He looked like a man on vacation. The second photo was a scan of a flight itinerary. Frank had added a single typed line at the top, pulled from the credit card records under your name. The booking showed one passenger, E. Bennett. Departure. January 4th, Los Angeles International to Harry Reid. International Las Vegas. One way, no return flight. No connecting leg to Tokyo. No international segment. Nothing. Just a 45-minute hop to Nevada on a ticket charged to the Visa card that Walter R. Bennett had never applied for. January 4th. 2 days before, I stood at that pillar at LAX watching him walk through security. He had gone to Las Vegas, first come back, and then stood at that check-in counter on January 6th with a carry-on bag and a story about Tokyo, going through the motions of a departure he had already made once in secret, making sure I saw him leave. My jaw tightened until I felt the pressure behind my ears. One way, he hadn't even bothered to book a return. Either he planned to buy one later with money that wasn't going to be his until the plan was finished, or he simply hadn't thought that far ahead. Both possibilities said the same thing about how confident he had been that none of this would ever reach me. The third photo was a printout of a hotel folio. The Venetian, room 1247. Check-in. January 4th. Checkout listed as open. Daily rate $412. Charged to Visa, ending in the 4 digits that matched the card the bank had told me about 2 days ago. The card in my name. The card I had never seen or touched. I set the phone face down on the table. I thought I would feel something large and violent when the proof finally came, the kind of anger that needs somewhere to go, that looks for walls or dishes or something loud. I had felt that kind of anger before, 20 years ago, when the accountant I'd trusted for a decade had skimmed $14,000 from the shop over 3 years, and I'd found out by accident. That anger had been hot and immediate, and it had taken me a week to stop shaking. This was not that. What I felt sitting at that table with those 3 photos was something colder and quieter, and in its own way more frightening, the feeling of a decision being made somewhere below, the level of thought settled and finished, before I even knew it was forming. The way a crack moves through metal before it fails. Silent, certain, complete. I picked up the phone again and called Frank. He answered on the first ring. "You saw them." "I saw them," I said. "When does he land?" "At flight records show a booking from Las Vegas back to LAX on the 20th. Evening flight gets in around 8 p.m. Frank paused. "That's 11 days from now, Walter. You've got time to do this right." "I'm going to," I said. "FBI called me back," Frank said. "My contact over there. They've had Ryan Cole on a watch list since the Nevada case. When I gave them what we had on the bank, reconnaissance, Caleb's notes, the dates, the locations they got, interested fast." He cleared his throat. "They want to talk to Caleb directly, and Walter, they may want to talk to you too." I looked out the kitchen window at the strip of gray January sky visible above the neighbor's fence. Somewhere under that sky, in a hotel room in Las Vegas, charged to my name, my son was having lunch or watching television or making phone calls about a future he had built on the assumption that I would never look closely enough to see what he had done. He had been right about a lot of things in his life. He had been wrong about that one. "Tell your contact at the FBI that I'll talk to whoever they need me to talk to," I said. "And Frank, thank you for all of it." "Stop that," Frank said gruffly. "Call me tonight." I hung up and turned the 3 photos face up on the table and looked at them laid out side by side, the corridor, the ticket, the hotel bill, and I reached into my shirt pocket and touched the folded edge of Margaret's letter, still there where I had put it the night before. Then I picked up the legal pad and kept writing. Diana had 2 documents laid side by side on her desk. When I walked in, one under a sheet of clean acetate, the other in an open manila folder, and she didn't say good morning or offer me coffee. She just pointed at the chair and said, "Look at these." I sat down and leaned forward. The document on the left was a photocopy of the power of attorney filed on October 4th. My name at the bottom, a notary stamp beside it. The signature line filled in with handwriting that looked at first glance exactly like mine. Upright letters, consistent pressure, the R in Walter looping, the way I'd always done it since high school. The document on the right was a page from the insurance claim I'd filed after the shop accident in 2019, the one where the hydraulic press had come down wrong and caught my right hand between the plate and the work table. I remembered signing that form in the hospital, 3 fingers wrapped, and my hand shaking so badly the nurse had offered to write it for me. I'd told her no. Some things you sign yourself. That signature was a wreck. The letters leaned right. The R barely closed. The whole line had a slight downward drift, like my hand had been fighting gravity the entire time. Diana placed a thin metal ruler between the 2 signatures and looked at me over the top of her glasses. "Your hand has had a tremor in the dominant fingers since the 2019 injury," she said. "Your physical therapist documented it. Your primary care physician noted it at your last 3 annual exams. It's mild enough that you can work around it, but it's consistent and measurable." She tapped the POA. "This signature shows none of that. The pressure is even. The letter forms are controlled. The R closes completely." She paused. "Mr. Bennett, someone spent time learning to write your name." The air went out of the room. I pressed both hands flat on my thighs and stared at the 2 signatures and felt something move through me that I didn't have a clean word for. Not anger, not grief, something that lived in the space between the 2, something that made my back teeth ache and my vision sharpen at the edges. He had practiced it. My son had sat somewhere at a kitchen table at a desk in a parked car and written my name over and over until he could do it without the tremor, until he could produce something clean enough to pass a notary. "There's more," Diana said. She pulled a 3rd document from the folder, the Cedars-Sinai discharge summary. "Hydrocodone 5 milligrams administered at 11:15 a.m. on October 4th. Standard post-procedure protocol." She set it beside the POA. "The notarization on this power of attorney is time-stamped at 2:47 p.m. the same day. That's 3 hours and 32 minutes after you received an opioid analgesic that carries an explicit contra-indication for signing legal documents." She looked at me steadily. "Under California Probate Code, Section 4121, a principal must have sufficient mental capacity to understand the nature and consequences of the document they are executing. Hydrocodone at therapeutic doses measurably impairs that capacity. The notary had an obligation to assess your state. They did not. What does that mean for the POA? I asked. It means it's void, Diana said, flat and certain, the way she said everything. It was void the moment it was signed. The lien on your property, the mortgage with Meridian Credit, the pending auction proceedings, all of it rests on a document that has no legal standing. She folded her hands on the desk. I filed the emergency motion yesterday afternoon. The auction is frozen as of this morning. No one is touching that property while this is in front of a judge. Something in my chest loosened by a fraction. Not much, but enough that I could breathe a little straighter. What happens next? I asked. We go to court, Diana said. The civil hearing is scheduled for February 25th. I will present the medical records, the signature analysis, and the connection between Pacific Rim Holdings and Ryan Cole, who as of this morning is also the subject of a federal investigation. She let that land. The criminal case and the civil case will run parallel. The criminal side is not your burden to carry. That belongs to the FBI and the U.S. Attorney's Office. Your job is to show up on February 25th and let me do what I do. I nodded slowly. Mr. Bennett. Diana's voice shifted by just a degree, still precise, but something underneath it that was almost gentle. I have handled 41 cases involving financial exploitation of elderly clients in this state, adult children, caregivers, financial advisors. She held my gaze. What was done to you was calculated and patient, and it required your son to look at you every day knowing what he had set in motion. That is not a small thing to carry. She paused. But I want you to understand something. The law in this state takes this seriously. California Welfare and Institutions Code, Section 15610.30, makes financial elder abuse a felony when it involves fraud and a victim over 65. Your son is 20 years younger than the minimum age of protection. You are not. I looked down at my right hand resting on my thigh. The faint tremor was there. If you knew to look for it, a barely perceptible movement in the first two fingers, like they were trying to say something too quiet to hear. He had studied that tremor. He had replicated the signature around it. He had waited for a day when the medication in my system would make the whole thing easy. I'd like to keep those copies, I said, nodding at the documents on the desk. Diana was already sliding them into a folder with my name on the tab. I made you a full set, she said. Take them home, lock them up. She stood and extended her hand across the desk. February 25th, Mr. Bennett. I'll see you then. I shook her hand and picked up the folder and walked back down the stairs and out into the pale January sunlight on Colorado Boulevard, and I stood on the sidewalk for a moment, with the folder under my arm and the noise of Pasadena moving around me, and thought about my son sitting somewhere practicing the way I signed my name. Then I walked to my truck and drove back to East LA and went to work. They pulled up in Frank's truck at 4:15, Frank behind the wheel, Caleb in the passenger seat with the spiral notebook on his knee. I had seen the truck turn onto my street from the kitchen window, and I was already at the door when they came up the front walk, Frank moving with the careful gait of a man whose knee had been arguing with him since October. Caleb a half step behind, with his hands in his jacket pockets and his shoulders carrying the particular tension of someone who wasn't sure of his welcome. Come in, I said. We sat at the kitchen table, the three of us, with the folder Diana had given me off to one side, and the legal pad I'd been filling for 5 days in the middle. Caleb set the notebook on the table in front of him and put both hands around it like it was something he needed to hold on to. I want to say something first, he said. His voice was steady, but his jaw was tight, and he looked at me directly the way a man looks at you when he's decided to stop being careful with his words. That morning in the car, I should have confirmed your identity before I said a single word. That's on me. What I told you, a man shouldn't hear that about his son from a stranger in a car he wasn't even supposed to be in. He stopped. His throat moved. I'm sorry for the way it happened. My chest ached at that. This man had been carrying that apology for 5 days, and I hadn't known. Caleb, I said, and I had to clear my throat before the rest of it would come out. If you hadn't said what you said, I would have handed my son a gift at the airport and driven home and gone to work and lost everything I've built before I understood what was happening. I met his eyes across the table. You didn't do anything wrong. You did the only right thing in the whole story. Caleb looked down at the notebook. His jaw worked for a second. Then he nodded once sharp and opened it to the first marked page. After I dropped you at the terminal, he said, I went home and read back through every entry I had on Ethan, all 6 rides, and I knew. He smoothed the page with the flat of his hand. I worked bank security for 8 years. I know what a man looks like when he's planning something. I know what questions you ask when you're trying to understand a target. And I knew that if I didn't say something to somebody who could do something about it, and that bank got hit, I was going to have to live with that. He looked up. So I called the FBI field office on Wilshire that same afternoon. Frank leaned back in his chair. "Tell him what they said." Caleb turned a page in the notebook. They already had a file on Ryan Cole. Open investigation, low priority, related to the Nevada fraud case from 2019. When I gave them the dates, the locations, the specific questions Ethan was asking about camera positions and patrol schedules, he tapped the page. It all went from low priority to something else very fast. "How fast?" I asked. "Agent I spoke to called me back within 2 hours," Caleb said. "They brought me in the next morning for a formal statement. I gave them everything, the notebook, the recordings." He paused at my expression. "My dash cam records audio. Has for 3 years. I didn't mention it that morning. In the car I wasn't certain yet what I had, and I needed to listen back before I said anything I couldn't take back. I went home after I dropped you at the terminal and pulled every file from the rides I had logged with Ethan. Listened to all of them. That's when I knew I had enough to make the call." He looked at me steadily. "2 of them have him describing the approach to the bank in detail. One of them has him on the phone saying the pickup is confirmed for a specific date." The kitchen was very quiet for a moment. Outside, a car passed on the street. The clock on the wall ticked. Frank spoke first. "FBI moved on Ryan Cole 2 days ago," he said. "Picked him up at his apartment in Silver Lake. Warrant based on the dash cam recordings and the wire transfer records Diana's office flagged." He glanced at Caleb and then back at me. "Cole lawyered up inside of an hour, but his attorney advised him to cooperate on the conspiracy charge in exchange for consideration on the bank robbery count." Frank's expression was flat and even. "He gave them Ethan." The words dropped into the room like a stone into still water. I pressed the heel of my hand against my sternum and held it there. "They have a warrant for Ethan's arrest," Frank continued. "They're waiting for him to land. FBI contacted me this morning. They want to execute at a location where there's no flight risk and no crowd. They asked about the home address." He looked at me carefully. "They're going to come here, Walter. When he walks through that door on the 20th, they'll be close behind." I looked at the table, at the legal pad with 5 days of careful notes, at the folder with the POA and the signatures and the medical records, at the spiral notebook Caleb had carried through 6 weeks of rides and one conversation that had changed everything. "Caleb." My voice came out rougher than I intended. I pressed on. "You didn't have to do any of this. You could have let me out of the car that morning and driven away and never said another word." Caleb shook his head slowly. "No," he said. "I really couldn't have." He closed the notebook and set it flat on the table. "I've got a daughter, 14 years old. Her mother passed 4 years ago." He said it simply, the way people state facts that have become load-bearing walls of their lives. "I spend a lot of time thinking about what I want her to see when she looks at me." He looked at me across the table, and something in his face was very quiet and very sure. I couldn't have driven away. My right hand was trembling against the tabletop. I didn't press it flat this time. I just let it be what it was. "Same time next week," Frank said, and the dryness in his voice was so perfectly timed that something cracked open in my chest and came out as a short, involuntary sound that was almost a laugh. Caleb looked between us, uncertain for a second. Then the corner of his mouth moved. "FBI agent said they will be in touch with you directly," Frank said back to business. "Probably tomorrow. They want a brief statement. Your account of the morning, the account's what Diana found, nothing complicated." He stood up slowly, knee complaining. "You doing all right?" I thought about the question seriously for a moment. "No," I said. "But I know what I'm doing. That's enough for right now." Frank nodded, like that was the most reasonable answer he'd heard all week. He picked up his keys, Caleb stood and tucked the notebook back into his jacket pocket, and I walked them both to the door and watched Frank's truck pull away from the curb and disappear around the corner at the end of the block. Then I went back to the kitchen table and sat down and looked at the clock on the wall. 9 more days. The 9 days passed, the way hard. Weeks do not slowly, not quickly, but with a kind of grinding steadiness that wore at the edges of things. I went to the shop every morning. I worked. I ate when I remembered to eat. I slept in pieces 2 or 3 hours at a stretch, and when I woke in the dark, I lay still and ran through everything I knew, the way you run through a checklist before a complicated job, making sure nothing had been missed, making sure every piece was where it was supposed to be. Frank called every evening. Sometimes we talked for 20 minutes, sometimes for 2. Caleb texted twice, once to say the FBI had followed up with him for a second statement, once to say he hoped I was holding up. I texted back that I was. It was mostly true. The night before Ethan was due home, I couldn't sleep at all. I got up at 11 and went to the kitchen in my socks and stood at the counter for a moment in the dark, not turning the light on, yet just listening to the house. The clock on the wall, the refrigerator cycling, the distant sound of a car moving through the neighborhood. Ordinary sounds, the sounds of a life that had been ordinary for a long time and was about to stop being. I turned on the light above the stove, just that one, low and warm, and I went to the drawer where I had put the folder and I took it out and set it on the table. Then I started laying the documents out one by one, the way I laid tools out before a job. Not randomly, not in a pile, in order and sequence, the way the story went from beginning to end, so that anyone sitting across that table would be able to follow it without a single word of explanation from me. The 3 photographs Frank had sent. Ethan in the hotel corridor, the flight itinerary, the hotel folio. I set those at the top left. Below them, the bank account statements. 3 withdrawals highlighted in yellow, the dates, the amounts, the memo lines in Ethan's handwriting. Car repair, investment opportunity discussed, personal loan, short term. Next to those, the credit card records for the Visa opened in my name, the Las Vegas charges, the Venetian, 14 months of statements I had never seen. Then, the power of attorney, the notary stamp, the signature that had no tremor. Beside it, the Cedars-Sinai discharge summary, the medication, the time, the instructions I hadn't been able to read clearly because the words kept blurring together on the drive home. At the bottom, Frank's report on Ryan Cole, the Nevada fraud case, Pacific Rim Holdings LLC, the wire transfer from Meridian Credit into Cole's operating account 48 hours after the POA was executed. I stood back and looked at it all spread across the oak table, Margaret's table, the one she'd found at an estate sale in Monterey Park in 1995, and made me drive 40 minutes to pick up in the truck because she said it was the kind of table a family should have. She had been right. We'd had 31 Thanksgivings at this table. Ethan had done his homework here every night from 4th grade through senior year. I had paid bills here and planned the shop expansion here, and sat here alone for many quiet mornings after Margaret died, drinking coffee and learning how to be a person without her. And tomorrow night, my son was going to sit across from me at this table and look at everything I had laid out and understand that it was over. I pulled out the chair and sat down. I picked up the photograph of Ethan in the hotel corridor, the one where he was laughing at his phone, shoulders loose, completely at ease, and I looked at it for a long time. I tried to find the boy I had raised in that face, the one who used to stand in the shop doorway on Saturday mornings at 7 years old, too small to reach the workbench, watching my hands move and asking questions I never got tired of answering. That boy, the one who cried when his dog died when he was 11, really cried face in his hands for 20 minutes, and I had sat beside him on the porch steps and put my arm around him and not said anything, because some things don't need words. That boy was in there somewhere. I had to believe that, but he had made room for something else too. Something calculated and cold that had been running quietly underneath the surface for longer than I wanted to know. And tomorrow night, those 2 things were going to have to answer for each other. My chest ached with a heaviness that had no clean edges, not anger, not grief, not love, but something made of all 3 pressed together until they were indistinguishable from one another. I gathered the documents back into the folder in the same order I had laid them out, slid the folder into the drawer, pushed the drawer shut. I sat for another moment with my hands on the table and my eyes closed. Then I opened them and looked at the clock. 12:47. Margaret's clock, white face, black numbers ticking its steady tick in the quiet kitchen. Tomorrow, I said to no one and to everyone who wasn't there. We finish it tomorrow. I got up, turned off the stove light, and went to bed. And for the first time in 2 weeks, I slept. Before I show you what happened, the night Ethan walked back through my front door, comment Walter. If you've stayed this far, I want to know you're here for this, because what I put on that kitchen table and what came through my front door an hour later is something I never thought I would live through. Note portions of this story include fictional elements added for narrative depth. Names in specific settings are not drawn from identifiable individuals, but what this story is trying to say is something I believe with everything I have. I heard his key in the lock at 7:22. I was sitting at the kitchen table with both hands resting flat on the wood, the way I had been sitting for the past 40 minutes. The folder was in the drawer to my right. The overhead light was on. The coffee maker had finished its cycle 10 minutes ago, and the smell of it hung in the warm kitchen air. Everything was exactly where it was supposed to be. The front door opened. I heard him set something down in the entryway, the soft thud of a bag hitting the floor, and then his footsteps came down the hall, unhurried and easy. The walk of a man coming home after a long trip with nothing on his conscience. He appeared in the kitchen doorway, and his face broke into a wide, genuine-looking smile the moment he saw me. "Dad." He crossed the room in 3 strides and put his arms around me from behind, squeezing my shoulders, pressing his cheek briefly against the top of my head, the way he'd done since he was tall enough to reach. He smelled like airport and cologne, and something else underneath the particular staleness of recycled hotel air. God, it's good to be home. He pulled out the chair across from me and dropped into it with the loose-limbed ease of a man who had been traveling and was glad to be done with it. His eyes were bright, his color was good. He looked rested in a way that had nothing to do with a long flight and everything to do with 11 days of not carrying anything heavy. "Tokyo was unbelievable," he said, leaning forward with his elbows on the table. "The meetings went better than I expected. The Henderson Group is serious, they're not just kicking tires. And the city itself," he shook his head like he was still processing it. "You'd love the engineering over there, Dad, the precision of everything. I kept thinking about you." He kept thinking about me. I looked at my son across the table, this man I had fed and clothed and worried over and worked for and loved with every capacity I had for 34 years. And I listened to him talk about a city he had never visited, describing streets he had never walked, meetings with people who did not exist. And I felt something in my chest go very quiet and very cold. I let him talk for 4 minutes. I counted. When he paused to take a breath, I reached into the drawer and pulled out the folder and set it on the table between us. He looked at it. His eyes dropped to the folder, and something moved across his face, quick, almost imperceptible there, and gone, and then the smile came back, slightly adjusted, slightly more careful. "What's this?" he said. I opened the folder and placed the first photograph on the table. Ethan in the corridor of the Venetian, laughing at his phone, January 5th at 9:22 p.m. The smile stayed on his face, but it stopped reaching his eyes. I placed the flight itinerary beside it. One way. Los Angeles to Las Vegas. E. Bennett. His jaw tightened. His right hand moved from the table to his lap. I placed the hotel folio. Room 1247. Visa ending in the 4 digits of the card opened in my name. "Dad." His voice came out careful and controlled the voice of someone buying time to find the right door. "I can explain the Las Vegas thing. It was the Tokyo leg got rerouted. There was a connection issue and I didn't want to worry you with the change in plans." I placed the bank statements on the table, 3 withdrawals highlighted in yellow, the memo lines in his own handwriting, his mouth closed. I placed the power of attorney beside the Cedars-Sinai discharge summary. Side by side, the way Diana had shown me, the perfect signature next to the medication record. Hydrocodone 5 milligrams, 11:15 a.m. October 4th. Something shifted behind Ethan's eyes. A rapid internal calculation, the look of a man running scenarios and finding exits closing off one by one. His left hand came up and pressed against his mouth, then dropped back to the table. His knee was bouncing under the table. I could feel the vibration of it through the floor. "The money," I said. It was the first thing I had said since he walked in. My voice came out level and quiet the way it does when I am absolutely certain of something. "The $180,000 from the mortgage on my shop. I want you to tell me where it went." Ethan's eyes filled. Fast, genuine, the tears of a man who has been caught, not the tears of a man who is sorry. His chin dropped and he pressed the heels of both hands against his eyes, and his shoulders shook once hard. "I'm in trouble, Dad," he said, his voice breaking through his hands. "I have been for a long time, and I didn't know how to tell you. The debts, they were so far gone, I couldn't see a way out, and Ryan told me..." He stopped himself, took a breath that shook on the way in. "I never wanted it to go this far. I swear to God, I never wanted this." "The shop," I said. "You mortgaged my shop and sent the money to Ryan Cole's company, Pacific Rim Holdings was going to buy it at auction. You were going to take 30% of the sale price. I kept my eyes on his face. Tell me, that's not true. The silence that followed lasted exactly 4 seconds. I know because the clock on the wall was ticking, and I counted. Then Ethan lowered his hands from his face and looked at me, and the calculation in his expression was gone, replaced by something raw and more honest than anything I had seen from him in years. His eyes were red. His mouth was pressed flat. He looked in that moment less like the man who had walked in smiling, and more like the 11-year-old who had sat on the porch steps crying about a dog. I didn't think it would actually get to that point, he said quietly. I thought by the time any of it, I thought I'd have paid it back before I found out, I said. He didn't answer, which was its own answer. I reached back into the folder and placed the last document on the table. Frank's report. Ryan Cole, Nevada fraud case. Pacific Rim Holdings, LLC. The wire transfer, 48 hours, $180,000 from Meridian Credit into Cole's operating account. Ethan stared at it. His hands were trembling now, both of them, fingers pressed flat against the tabletop like he needed the surface to keep from coming apart entirely. "Dad," he said, and his voice cracked down the middle of that one word. "Dad, please." The doorbell rang. I stood up from the table slowly, the way I stand up when a job is finished and it's time to put the tools away. My knees ached, my back ached. Everything ached in the way of a man who has been carrying something very heavy for a very long time and can finally feel the weight of it now that the end is in sight. "That'll be them," I said. I walked out of the kitchen toward the front door, and behind me, I heard Ethan pull in a sharp breath, the breath of a man who has just understood all at once and with complete clarity exactly what that sentence means. I heard his key in the lock at 7:22. I was sitting at the kitchen table with both hands resting flat on the wood, the way I had been sitting for the past 40 minutes. The folder was in the drawer to my right. The overhead light was on. The coffee maker had finished its cycle 10 minutes ago, and the smell of it hung in the warm kitchen air. Everything was exactly where it was supposed to be. The front door opened. I heard him set something down in the entryway, the soft thud of a bag hitting the floor, and then his footsteps came down the hall, unhurried and easy. The walk of a man coming home after a long trip with nothing on his conscience. He appeared in the kitchen doorway, and his face broke into a wide, genuine-looking smile the moment he saw me. "Dad." He crossed the room in 3 strides and put his arms around me from behind, squeezing my shoulders, pressing his cheek briefly against the top of my head, the way he'd done since he was tall enough to reach. He smelled like airport and cologne, and something else underneath the particular staleness of recycled hotel air. "God, it's good to be home." He pulled out the chair across from me and dropped into it with the loose-limbed ease of a man who had been traveling and was glad to be done with it. His eyes were bright. His color was good. He looked rested in a way that had nothing to do with a long flight and everything to do with 11 days of not carrying anything heavy. "Tokyo was unbelievable," he said, leaning forward with his elbows on the table. "The meetings went better than I expected. The Henderson Group is serious. They're not just kicking tires. And the city itself." He shook his head like he was still processing it. "You'd love the engineering over there, Dad. The precision of everything. I kept thinking about you." He kept thinking about me. I looked at my son across the table, this man I had fed and clothed and worried over and worked for and loved with every capacity I had for 34 years. And I listened to him talk about a city he had never visited, describing streets he had never walked, meetings with people who did not exist. And I felt something in my chest go very quiet and very cold. I let him talk for 4 minutes. I counted. When he paused to take a breath, I reached into the drawer and pulled out the folder and set it on the table between us. He looked at it. His eyes dropped to the folder, and something moved across his face, quick, almost imperceptible there, and gone, and then the smile came back, slightly adjusted, slightly more careful. "What's this?" he said. I opened the folder and placed the first photograph on the table. Ethan in the corridor of the Venetian, laughing at his phone, January 5th at 9:22 p.m. The smile stayed on his face, but it stopped reaching his eyes. I placed the flight itinerary beside it. One way, Los Angeles to Las Vegas. E. Bennett. His jaw tightened. His right hand moved from the table to his lap. I placed the hotel folio. Room 1247. Visa ending in the 4 digits of the card opened in my name. His voice came out careful and controlled the voice of someone buying time to find the right door. I can explain the Las Vegas thing. It was the Tokyo leg got rerouted. There was a connection issue, and I didn't want to worry you with the change in plans. I placed the bank statements on the table. 3 withdrawals highlighted in yellow, the memo lines in his own handwriting, his mouth closed. I placed the power of attorney beside the Cedars-Sinai discharge summary, side by side the way Diana had shown me, the perfect signature next to the medication record. Hydrocodone, 5 milligrams, 11:15 a.m. October 4th. Something shifted behind Ethan's eyes, a rapid internal calculation, the look of a man running scenarios and finding exits closing off one by one. His left hand came up and pressed against his mouth, then dropped back to the table. His knee was bouncing under the table. I could feel the vibration of it through the floor. "The money," I said. It was the first thing I had said since he walked in. My voice came out levels and quiet the way it does when I am absolutely certain of something. "The $180,000 from the mortgage on my shop. I want you to tell me where it went." Ethan's eyes filled. Fast, genuine, the tears of a man who has been caught, not the tears of a man who is sorry. His chin dropped, and he pressed the heels of both hands against his eyes, and his shoulders shook once hard. "I'm in trouble, Dad," he said, his voice breaking through his hands. "I have been for a long time, and I didn't know how to tell you. The debts, they were so far gone, I couldn't see a way out, and Ryan told me." He stopped himself, took a breath that shook on the way in. "I never wanted it to go this far. I swear to God, I never wanted this." The shop," I said. "You mortgaged my shop and sent the money to Ryan Cole's company. Pacific Rim Holdings was going to buy it at auction. You were going to take 30% of the sale price." I kept my eyes on his face. "Tell me that's not true." The silence that followed lasted exactly 4 seconds. I know because the clock on the wall was ticking and I counted. Then Ethan lowered his hands from his face and looked at me, and the calculation in his expression was gone, replaced by something rawer and more honest than anything I had seen from him in years. His eyes were red. His mouth was pressed flat. He looked in that moment less like the man who had walked in smiling, and more like the 11-year-old who had sat on the porch steps crying about a dog. "I didn't think it would actually get to that point," he said quietly. "I thought by the time any of it, I thought I'd have paid it back before I found out," I said. He didn't answer, which was its own answer. I reached back into the folder and placed the last document on the table, Frank's report. Ryan Cole, Nevada fraud case, Pacific Rim Holdings LLC. The wire transfer 48 hours, $180,000 from Meridian Credit into Cole's operating account. Ethan stared at it. His hands were trembling now, both of them, his fingers pressed flat against the tabletop, like he needed the surface to keep from coming apart entirely. "Dad," he said, and his voice cracked down the middle of that one word. "Dad, please." The doorbell rang. I stood up from the table slowly, the way I stand up when a job is finished and it's time to put the tools away. My knees ached, my back ached. Everything ached in the way of a man who has been carrying something very heavy for a very long time and can finally feel the weight of it now that the end is in sight. "That'll be them," I said. I walked out of the kitchen toward the front door, and behind me I heard Ethan pull in a sharp breath, the breath of a man who has just understood all at once and with complete clarity exactly what that sentence means. The 5.5 weeks between the night Ethan was taken out of my kitchen and the morning of the civil hearing passed in a particular kind of quiet that I had not experienced before. Not the quiet of grief, not the quiet of anger, the quiet of a man who has done everything he can do and is now waiting for the machinery of something larger than himself to finish its work. I went to the shop every day. I taught the 3 young men from the county program how to read a torque spec and how to clean a carburetor, and how to tell the difference between a part that needs replacing and a part that just needs attention. One of them, a 20-year-old named Marcus, who had been inside for 18 months on a weapons charge, turned out to have the best instincts for mechanical work I had seen in 30 years of teaching people. I told him so. He looked at me like no one had said anything like that to him before, which made me think that probably no one had. The morning of February 25th. I put on the good jacket I had worn to Margaret's funeral and drove to downtown Los Angeles. Los Angeles Superior Court on Spring Street is a tall building with a pale granite facade that catches the winter light in a way that is almost beautiful if you are not too nervous to look at it properly. I had never been inside a courthouse in my life. I stood on the sidewalk for a moment and looked up at it, feeling the particular smallness of a private citizen standing in front of a public institution. And then I went in. Diana was already at the plaintiff's table when I found the right courtroom. She had 3 folders open in front of her, and a legal pad covered in her precise, compressed handwriting, and a cup of coffee she hadn't touched. She looked up when I sat down beside her and said simply, "Good morning. Don't say anything unless I ask you to." The hearing lasted 2 hours and 14 minutes. Diana presented the medical records from Cedars-Sinai, first the hydrocodone, the time of administration, the discharge instructions explicitly prohibiting the signing of legal documents. She presented the signature analysis walking the court through the documented tremor in my dominant hand and the absence of that tremor in the power of attorney. She presented the wire transfer records showing the movement of the loan proceeds from Meridian Credit into Pacific Rim Holdings LLC within 48 hours of the POA execution. She was not dramatic about any of it. She did not raise her voice or gesture at the opposing counsel or pause for effect. She laid each piece of evidence on the record the way a good mechanic lays tools on a workbench in order in sequence each one exactly where it needed to be. The attorney representing Meridian Credit tried twice to argue that the POA had been validly executed. The first time Diana produced the notary's log showing no assessment of my mental state had been recorded, which California law required. The second time she cited established California appellate precedent, confirming that opioid impairment at therapeutic doses constitutes incapacity for purposes of probate code, section 4121, and produced the notary's log showing no capacity assessment had been recorded as required by law. The opposing attorney did not try a third time. Toward the end, the judge, a woman in her 60s with close-cropped gray hair and the expression of someone who had heard a great many stories and was not easily moved by them, looked up from the documents on her bench and asked me directly if I had knowingly and voluntarily granted power of attorney to Ethan James Bennett on October 4th, 2023. I leaned toward the microphone. "No, ma'am," I said. I did not. She looked at me for a moment over her reading glasses. Whatever she found in my face seemed to be sufficient. She turned back to the documents. The courtroom was very still. The power of attorney dated October 4th, 2023. She said in the measured tone of someone recording a fact for the permanent record, is declared void and unenforceable under California Probate Code, section 4121, on the grounds that the principal lacked the requisite mental capacity at the time of execution. She made a note. All foreclosure proceedings against the property known as Bennett and Sons Repair, located in Boyle Heights, Los Angeles County, are hereby permanently enjoined. The lien filed by Meridian Credit LLC against said property is vacated. Another note. Any and all claims by Pacific Rim Holdings LLC to said property are dismissed with prejudice. Diana's pen moved on her legal pad. Her face did not change. Mine did. I pressed both hands flat on the table in front of me and dropped my head and breathed through it, the hot, sharp pressure behind my eyes, the tightening across my chest, the strange and disorienting sensation of a weight I had been carrying for 7 weeks, lifting all at once from my shoulders. My hands were trembling against the table, both of them, not just the right, and I did not try to stop them. 38 years, still mine. Outside on the Spring Street sidewalk afterward, Diana shook my hand and told me the criminal case would take several more months to resolve, and that I should expect to be called as a witness. She told me Ethan's public defender had already begun plea negotiations with the U.S. Attorney's Office. She told me the civil judgment against Pacific Rim Holdings would be forwarded to the Nevada Attorney General's office for review of Ryan Cole's broader activities. She said all of this in the same, even unhurried voice she used for everything. Then she looked at me and said, "Go back to work, Mr. Bennett." I took the long way back to the truck down Spring Street to First, across to Broadway, the way through the old part of downtown, that I had driven 100 times over the years, on shop runs and parts pickups and deliveries. The city moved around me the way it always did, indifferent and enormous and alive. Bennett and Sons was still mine. I got in the truck and drove back to Boyle Heights. The shop smelled the same way it had always smelled. That was the first thing I noticed when I unlocked the front gate the morning after the hearing and pulled it back on its track and stood in the doorway for a moment before going in. Motor oil and metal shavings and the faint chemical bite of solvent, and underneath all of it, the older smell, the one that had soaked into the concrete floor and the cinder block walls over 38 years, the smell of work, of accumulated effort, of 10,000 mornings, just like this one. I stood there and breathed it in, then I went inside. The shop was exactly as I had left it on the last working day before the hearing. Tools hung in their places on the pegboard. The hydraulic lift was in the down position, locked. The parts shelf along the east wall was organized the way I had organized it in 1994 and never reorganized since because it worked, and things that work should be left alone. The coffee maker on the corner table had a film of old grounds in the filter basket that I had forgotten to change. I changed the filter, started a fresh pot, moved through the familiar sequence of opening checks the way I had moved through them every morning for 38 years, checking fluid levels, inspecting the compressor, making sure the lift hydraulics were holding pressure. Everything was holding. I went to the workbench along the back wall and opened the bottom drawer and took out the leather tool roll, the one I had wrapped in brown paper and twine on the night of January the 5th, and carried to the airport and brought back and put in this drawer the morning I returned from LAX with a folder full of evidence and a decision that hadn't needed making, because it had already made itself. I unrolled it on the workbench. 12 pockets, 12 tools, each one cleaned and returned to its place. A flathead and a Phillips in the first 2 slots. The needle nose pliers with the worn grip tape that I kept meaning to replace. The small torque wrench I had bought in 1991 and used on more jobs than I could count. I ran my right hand along the row of them. The tremor was there, faint and steady the way it always was. I had carried this roll to the airport to give to my son. I rolled it back up and tied the leather cord and set it at the front corner of the workbench where I could see it while I worked. Not to give away, not anymore, just to keep where it belonged. Marcus arrived at 7:30 with the other 2, all 3 of them a little uncertain, the way they always were at the start of a day, standing just inside the door, like they were waiting for permission to come the rest of the way in. "There's coffee," I said, without turning around from the bench. "Cups are on the shelf, clean ones on the left." I heard the 3 of them move into the shop, the particular shuffle of young men trying not to make noise, the clink of mugs, the sound of coffee being poured. Marcus appeared at my left elbow. He was looking at the tool roll on the corner of the bench. He had good eyes. He noticed things, filed them away, the same instinct I'd had at his age that had made me a decent mechanic before I was a good one. "That's old," he said, not a question. 38 years, I said. He considered that for a moment with the seriousness that I had come to recognize in him, the seriousness of a young man who had lost time and knew it and was trying to figure out what that meant going forward. "What are we starting with today?" he asked. I turned and looked at the 3 of them standing in my shop with their coffee cups and their uncertain postures and their particular combination of damage and possibility that I recognized because I had seen it in the mirror at their age, more or less. And I felt something in my chest that was not happiness exactly, but was in the same family, the feeling of a thing continuing that is worth continuing. "There's a 79 Chevy pickup in the yard that came in last week," I said. "Carburetor's flooding. We're going to pull it apart and find out why." I looked at Marcus. "You're going to lead the diagnosis, other 2 watch and ask questions. I'll tell you when you're wrong." Marcus straightened slightly, tried not to show it, didn't entirely succeed. "Yes, sir," he said. We went to work. The day moved the way good working days do, not fast, not slow, but with the satisfying forward momentum of problems being identified and addressed one at a time. The carburetor on the Chevy turned out to have a needle valve that had worn unevenly on one side, a small thing that had caused a cascade of larger problems the way small things usually do. Marcus found it on his 3rd pass with a flashlight and a mirror on an extension rod, and when he held it up to the light and said, "Here, right here on the seat," the satisfaction in his voice was so clean and uncomplicated that I had to look away for a second. By 4 in the afternoon, the Chevy was running. I sent the 3 of them home at 4:30 and stood alone in the shop for a while. After they left, the way I had always done, at the end of a good day, just standing in the quiet, listening to the shop settle the tick of cooling metal, the distant sound of Boyle Heights going about its business outside. I turned the lights off one section at a time, the way I always had from the back of the shop forward. The hydraulic lift, the parts shelf, the workbench. At the workbench, I stopped and picked up the leather tool roll and held it for a moment. Then I put it in my coat pocket. Outside, I locked the front gate and stood on the sidewalk and looked up at the sign above the door, Bennett and Sons Repair. White letters on green. I had painted that sign myself in 1986 with a brush I still had somewhere and paint I'd mixed twice because the first batch was the wrong shade of green. The sign needed repainting, had needed it for a couple of years if I was honest. The white was chalking at the edges, and the green had faded unevenly in the sun. I made a note to do it in the spring. Then I walked to my truck and drove home through the early March evening, with the leather tool roll in my coat pocket and the shop locked behind me and the city of Los Angeles lit up around me in the fading light. And I did not feel like a man who had survived something. I felt like a man who had work to do tomorrow. Frank DeLuca's house on Elmwood Avenue in Burbank was a single-story California bungalow with a detached garage, a lemon tree in the side yard that had never produced a single lemon in the 15 years Frank had owned it, and a backyard patio with a gas grill that he treated with more seriousness than most people treated their careers. He had called me on a Tuesday and said, "Saturday, bring nothing, 6:30. That was the full invitation. I pulled up at 6:28 and found Caleb already there, sitting in one of the mismatched patio chairs with a bottle of Modelo in his hand and his jacket still on against the early March chill. He raised the bottle when he saw me come through the gate. "He wouldn't let me help with anything?" Caleb said, tilting his head toward Frank, who was standing at the grill with a pair of tongs and the focused expression of a man performing surgery. "Nobody helps with the grill," I said. "House rule, has been since 1994. 1993, Frank said without turning around. "And the rule stands." I took the chair next to Caleb. Frank handed me a beer over his shoulder without looking, and I opened it and sat back and looked up at the sky over Burbank, which was doing something unusual for early March, clearing after a week of rain, going from gray to a deep luminous blue that made the palm trees at the end of the block look like they had been cut from black paper and pasted there. "How's the shop?" Caleb asked. "Running," I said. "Young man named Marcus is turning into a decent mechanic. Better instincts than I had at his age, honestly." "High praise from you," Frank said. "It's the truth," I said. Frank moved things around on the grill with the tongs, and the smell of charcoal and fat moved through the evening air, and I felt something in my chest that had been knotted for 2 months loosen by another degree. We ate at the patio table with the string lights Frank had strung along the fence 3 years ago and never taken down, because as he put it, leaving them up was easier than arguing about whether to leave them up. Tri-tip and roasted vegetables and bread from the Mexican bakery 2 blocks away that Frank had been going to since the 90s. Caleb had brought a bag of chips and a jar of salsa, which Frank accepted without comment and put on the table without acknowledging. "Dodgers signed that left-handed reliever," Frank said, working at a piece of bread, "the one from Seattle." "I saw that," I said. "Overpaid." "Probably," Frank said, "but they overpay everybody, and it usually works out." "The Lakers, on the other hand," Caleb said. Frank pointed at him with a piece of tri-tip on a fork. "Don't," Caleb grinned. It was the first time I had seen him grin a real one, easy and unguarded, and it changed his whole face. Knocked 10 years off, it made him look like a man who had more good in front of him than he sometimes allowed himself to believe. We talked about the Dodgers and about Frank's knee, which was scheduled for a scope in April, and about the lemon tree that had never produced lemons, which Frank maintained was a philosophical issue and not a horticultural one. Caleb told a story about a fare he had picked up the previous week who had tried to pay him in cryptocurrency, which he had declined, and the subsequent argument about the future of currency that had lasted the entire 40-minute ride to Burbank. I laughed. A real laugh, the kind that comes from somewhere low in the chest and catches you slightly off guard with its own momentum. Frank looked at me when I did it just briefly with an expression I recognized, the expression of a man who has been watching for something and is quietly relieved to see it. Nobody mentioned Ethan. Nobody mentioned the courthouse or the hearing or the warrant or the kitchen on the night of January 20th. Those things existed. They would continue to exist. But they did not need to be at this table tonight. And by unspoken agreement of 3 men who had each learned in their different ways that some things are carried better. If you occasionally set them down, we left them at the gate when we came in. After dinner, Frank made coffee and we sat with it until the string lights were the brightest things in the yard and the air had gone properly cold and Caleb had put his jacket hood up against it. "My daughter wants to learn to drive," Caleb said out of nowhere. "She's 15, scares me more than anything I've done in 45 years. "It should," Frank said. "Does it get better?" Caleb asked. Frank and I looked at each other across the table. "No," we both said at the same time in the same flat tone. Caleb looked between us. Then he laughed, surprised and open and genuine, and Frank's mustache moved in the way it moved when he was trying not to smile and failing, and the three of us sat in the cold backyard in Burbank with our coffee cups, and I thought about the morning of January 6th, the wrong car, and the right words, and the long chain of events that had brought three men who had no particular reason to be sitting together to this specific table on this specific evening. I thought about how strange it was, and then I thought about how it was exactly the right kind of strange. Caleb stood up first, pulling his jacket straight. "I've got an early morning." He picked up his bottle and his plate and carried them inside without being asked the way a person does when they were raised right, and it shows even when they're not thinking about it. He came back out and shook Frank's hand and then turned to me. "Same time next week," he said. I looked at Frank. Frank looked at me. "Same time," I said. I helped Frank clear the rest of the table and stack the chairs against the fence and cover the grill, and then I walked out through the gate and down the front path to my truck. The street was quiet. The March air smelled like rain on concrete and citrus from the neighbor's yard. Nothing like a lemon tree, but close enough. I drove home through the lit-up streets of Burbank and Glendale and into East LA, and the truck was warm and the radio was on low, and I was, if not exactly happy, then something adjacent to it. Something workable, something that would do. I turned onto my street and the porch light was on the way. It always was, on the timer Margaret had set in 2001, and that I had never changed because it came on at 6 and went off at midnight, and that was exactly right. On the front step, half in shadow and half in the yellow light of the porch lamp, was an envelope. I sat in the truck for a moment with the engine running, looking at it through the windshield. White envelope, my address handwritten. The return address in the upper left corner was printed in small block letters, the institutional kind. Metropolitan Detention Center, Los Angeles, CA. Ethan. I turned off the engine, sat in the dark for a while. Then I got out of the truck and picked up the envelope and went inside. I set the envelope on the kitchen table and did not open it right away. Instead, I hung up my coat, washed my hands at the sink, the way I always did when I came in from outside, dried them on the dish towel hanging from the oven handle, and put the kettle on. Some things you do in order because the order matters, because it keeps the ground solid under your feet when the ground has a reason to feel uncertain. I had learned that much in 67 years. While the kettle heated, I stood at the counter and looked at the envelope. My name in Ethan's handwriting. He had always had better handwriting than me. His mother's influenced at the same careful cursive she had used on birthday cards and grocery lists, and the letter I carried in my shirt pocket for 30 days after I found it, before I finally put it somewhere safer. The return address was printed in the institutional block letters of a place that prints a lot of return addresses. Metropolitan Detention Center, 535 North Alameda Street, Los Angeles, CA 9012. I knew the building. I had driven past it 100 times over the years on runs to the warehouse district, a tall beige-gray structure that you could look at 100 times and not particularly notice, which was probably the point. The kettle clicked off. I made the tea, not coffee, for once because it was late, and I wanted to sleep afterward, and brought the mug to the table and sat down. I picked up the envelope and held it for a moment. Then I opened it. There were 3 pages inside, written on both sides of lined paper, in the precise, compressed handwriting of a man who has been given a limited quantity of something and is being careful with it. The date at the top was February 28th, 3 days after the hearing. He had written this 3 days after a judge declared void everything he had spent months constructing. I smoothed the pages flat on the table and began to read. "Dad," he had written, "I've started this letter 4 times and thrown it away 4 times because everything I write sounds like an excuse, and I know you well enough to know that excuses are not what this moment calls for. So I'm going to try to just say what's true and let you decide what to do with it." I read slowly. I am a slow reader by nature. I have always been, even as a boy, and that night I was slower than usual, taking each sentence apart, the way I take apart a mechanism I don't yet understand, looking at each piece before moving to the next one. He wrote about the debt, not excusing it, not minimizing it, just describing it the way you describe a thing that got out of control before you understood what it was. He wrote about the day he lost his job, the particular shame of driving away from the Pacific West Freight parking lot for the last time with a cardboard box on the passenger seat and not being able to call me. He wrote, "I told myself I would fix it before you ever had to know." That was the first lie, not the last, but the first, and all the others grew out of it the way bad things do. He wrote about Ryan Cole, about the night Ryan had sat across from him in a bar in Silver Lake and laid out the plan in a voice so calm and reasonable that Ethan had almost convinced himself it was a business arrangement and not what it was. He wrote, "I knew what it was. I want to be honest with you about that because you deserve honesty, and I have given you the opposite of that for too long. I knew what it was, and I told myself the math worked out, and the shop would be fine, and you would never have to know that either. And I understand now how completely insane that sounds, and I understand why." My tea was going cold. I did not notice. He wrote about the POA. He wrote it plainly without softening it, the way you write about a thing when you have had enough quiet time in a small room to stop being able to lie to yourself about it. He wrote, "I knew you weren't fully yourself that afternoon. I drove you to a notary's office and I told you it was insurance paperwork, and I held the pen out and you signed because you trusted me. That is the thing I have to live with. Not the money, not the shop, not any of the rest of it. That is the thing. You trusted me the way you have always trusted me completely and without question, and I used it." I pressed my thumb and forefinger against the bridge of my nose and held them there for a long moment. He wrote about Margaret. He wrote, "I think about what she would say. I have been thinking about it since the night they brought me here, and I have not been able to stop. I think she would be ashamed of me. I also think she would still love me. I don't know which one of those hurts worse to think about, but I think about both of them every day." He wrote, "I remember when she was sick that last winter, the way you used to sit with her after she fell asleep and just be there. You didn't do anything, you just stayed. I used to stand in the doorway and watch you do that, and I thought, I understood what it meant. I don't think I understood it all. I think I am only beginning to understand it now and here, in the particular way that you begin to understand things when you have a great deal of time and nothing to fill it with except the truth about yourself." I set the pages down for a moment and looked at the wall above the stove. The clock, white face, black numbers ticking its steady tick. I picked the pages back up. The last part was shorter. He did not ask me to visit. He did not ask me to write back. He did not make any requests at all, which told me more about what he had learned in the past 6 weeks than anything else on the 3 pages. He wrote, "I'm not asking you for anything, Dad. I don't think I have the right to ask you for anything right now, and maybe not for a long time. I just wanted you to know that I know what I did. All of it. Not a version of it that makes me look better. All of it. And I wanted you to know that I'm sorry in a way that I understand is not enough, and might never be enough, and that I understand that too." The last line was, "I love you. I know that might not mean much right now, but it's true, and the truth is something I owe you." He had signed it the way he had signed every birthday card and Christmas card since he was old enough to write just Ethan. No last name, no formality. Just his name in the handwriting his mother had taught him. I sat at the table for a long time after I finished reading. The kitchen was very quiet. The clock ticked. The refrigerator cycled. Outside, the neighborhood made its soft nighttime sounds, a car on Whittier Boulevard, someone's dog, 2 houses over the distant percussion of a party, somewhere east of us that was too far away to be annoying, and just close enough to remind you that the world was still going on. I thought about what it means to love someone who has done something genuinely terrible. I had been thinking about it in the way you think about things you don't want to think about for 2 months. I did not have a clean answer. I was not sure there was one. Love, in my experience, does not behave in clean and logical ways. It does not revise itself neatly in response to events. It persists in the way old things persist, quietly, stubbornly, inconveniently in the corners of rooms you have tried to close off. I still love my son. I knew that sitting at the table on a March night in East Los Angeles with 3 pages of his handwriting in front of me, I loved him the way you love something that has hurt you badly enough to change the shape of you. Not the same way I had loved him before, not with the same trust or the same uncomplicated pride, but love nonetheless worn down to something harder and more honest than it had been before, the way metal gets honest when you've worked it enough. That did not mean I knew what to do with the letter. I folded the 3 pages carefully, the way he had folded them, and slid them back into the envelope and pressed the flap down. Then I got up from the table and went to the shelf in the living room where the photographs were. Margaret's photograph was the one on the end, the one from the summer of '89 before Ethan was born, when we had driven up the coast to Big Sur and stopped at a pullout above the ocean, and I had taken it with the point-and-shoot camera I still had somewhere in the hall closet. She was laughing in the picture. The wind had gotten her hair, and she was trying to hold it back with one hand and laughing at the difficulty of it, and I had taken the picture in the middle of all that motion and caught something true. I set the envelope down on the shelf beside her photograph. Not because I had forgiven everything, not because I had answers, Not because I knew what the next chapter of this was going to look like, or what role, if any, I was going to play in whatever my son's life became after the weight of his own choices had finished falling on him. I set it there because it belonged near her, because she would have known what to do with it better than I did, because keeping it next to her felt for reasons I could not entirely articulate, like the right thing, the way some things are simply right without requiring justification, the way certain tools fit your hand, the way certain sounds tell you a machine is running the way it should. I stood at the shelf for a moment and looked at both of them, the photograph and the envelope. The woman I had loved for 30 years and was still in conversation with, in the one-sided way you stay in conversation with people after they leave. The son I had made with her who had broken something important, who was sitting in a room on North Alameda Street trying to find the words for it. "I don't know," I said to her, to the photograph, to whatever of her persisted in the quiet of rooms she had lived in. "I don't know yet." The clock in the kitchen ticked. I went back to the kitchen and poured the cold tea down the drain and rinsed the mug. I checked the back door was locked. I turned off the light above the stove, the last light in the house, and stood for a moment in the dark kitchen with my hand still on the switch. Outside the window above the sink, East Los Angeles was doing what it did at this hour, settling into the particular quiet of a neighborhood that never goes entirely silent, the soft, ongoing sound of a city that has its own reasons to keep running through the night. A streetlight threw a rectangle of orange light across the kitchen floor. The refrigerator hummed. The clock on the wall moved 1 second forward, and then another. My right hand trembled lightly against the light switch. I felt it, the familiar small motion, and I took my hand away from the switch and looked at it in the dark, just the shape of it, the outline, the hand that had built 38 years of something worth building, the hand whose tremor had been the one true thing in a document full of lies. Still mine. All of it, still mine. I went to bed. In the morning I woke at 5 o'clock, as I always did before the alarm. I lay in the dark for a moment and listened to the house. Then I got up, went to the kitchen, started the coffee and stood at the window while it brewed, looking out at the first thin light coming over the roofline across the street. East Los Angeles waking up, the sky going from black to the particular deep blue that comes just before dawn, breaks the color that lasts maybe 10 minutes and then is gone for another day. The lemon tree in the corner of my yard that had started putting out blossoms in the last week, pale and small and stubborn. The coffee maker beeped. I poured a cup and held it in both hands and felt the warmth move through my palms, the good ordinary warmth of a thing that is exactly what it is supposed to be. And I looked out at the morning, coming into East LA, and I thought about the shop, about the '79 Chevy that still needed its fuel lines, checked about the sign above the door that needed repainting come spring, about Marcus and his good instincts, and what I might be able to make of them if I paid attention. I thought about Frank's lemon tree that had never produced a single lemon. I thought about Caleb's daughter learning to drive. I thought about my son on North Alameda Street, waking up to the same morning in a different kind of room, carrying the same weight in a place where the carrying was harder. I did not pick up the phone. I did not sit down to write a letter. I did not know yet if I would or when or what I would say if I did. But I held the coffee cup in both hands, and I looked out at the morning, and I did not close any doors that I was not certain needed closing. One more day, that was all. Just one more day. I put on my jacket, picked up my keys, and went to work. I spent 67 years believing that loving someone completely was the same as knowing them completely. It is not. And that difference nearly cost me everything I had spent my life building. Here is what I want you to take from this family story. Love without clarity is not protection. It is an open door. I left that door open for 34 years, and someone I made walked right through it. I am not a man who speaks easily about God. But I will say this: once on the worst nights when the kitchen was dark and the folder was on the table and I did not know how to keep going, something held me up that was not my own strength. I am grateful for that. Do not do what I did. Read what you sign. Ask the questions that feel uncomfortable. Family betrayal does not announce itself. It arrives quietly in small kindnesses that are actually withdrawals in trust that is being spent without your knowledge. My honest opinion, the bravest thing in any family story is choosing to see clearly even when you love what you are looking at. If any part of this reached you, if you recognize something, leave a comment. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe if you want to stay. Family betrayal leaves marks. So does surviving it. Thank you for being here until the very last word. The stories on this channel contain fictional elements built for reflection and meaning. If that is not what you came for, no judgment, find what fits you. But if you stay, I will always give you something honest.